anything that you want to see in the fusee ideas, bring them to me. Really want to make it your document. I mean, it's the Thousand Lake region voice, you know, and what you want to find out and hear and see what's going on in the region, just let me know, because that's what it's all about. And if there's anybody willing to give me content, come talk to me. So I got a lot of ideas and anything that you might want to see or do in there, you know, have a conversation with me. So with that, we'll get started. I kind of like to move around and get interactive with the group, so if I move too much and anything annoying, just let me know. One of the lessons I learned giving presentations, I used to put my keys and stuff in your pocket, take them out, because I used to jingle them. So got some nice advice from people about that. So just makes for a better presentation. So let's get started. All right, so basically I'm going to break this into two parts. A little bit about why I'm starting over and how I kind of got my head around why should I even take this on? Why do I want to do this? I want to talk a little bit about the process of actually making a training room. So I kind of asked about the do-it-yourself project. Because I started with Bear Space, and then I'll go through a little bit too. I'll talk about you know what I actually came up with and decided to do for the actual layout. Now the layouts are just being started in construction right now. I'll explain more on that, but hopefully in some of the materials I brought, I can explain how I'm working on that part of the project. And obviously, I always like to give you the lessons that I learned, because I did learn a lot of stuff going through this process. Disclaimer, I like to just say this out. This is my observations. These are things that I learned, you know, so take them with a grain of salt. It's what I've done, what's worked for me. They may not work for you. So be wary of that. So use your own judgment on how you use any information that I share with you as far as what I have learned and stuff. So there most likely are probably other better ways to do some of this stuff. So got to, be open and share that with individuals. All right, so why start over? And I was just at a point in my life, finally got retired. I've always had a dream to have a larger layout that's permanent in a place. Everything that I've ever done in the past, I've always had to move or keep an eye on the fact that at some point I'm probably going to be moving. So everything I built is bolted together, modular in nature, and I always kept that in consideration when I build stuff. In fact, early on in my hobby back in the 90s and stuff, everything I had there were portable layouts I took to different shows and stuff to share. Finally, I'm at a point now, I don't want to do that anymore. I just want to have a permanent layout. So everything that you'll see here, this layout is designed that there'll be somebody after I'm dead going to be taking it down, helping my family out. So it's not going to be me. So at least that's how I'm looking at planning this. Kind of my thoughts. Some of the obvious stuff that I've thought about too is we're all getting a lot of, large percentage of the hobby are getting older, and they say that you can have a good healthy life, you can interact more with your friends and family and stuff. But this is a good opportunity. And I'll share a little bit more because one of the layouts is going to be designed more around operation. A lot of the stuff that Ken shared earlier, if you were here, talking about creating stories and stuff. I kind of see that as part of the hobby that I want to get involved with. I really haven't done very much of that. Most of the stuff I've done, I've been kind of involved. Obviously, it's a good way to improve your skills. If you're into the AP program, starting from scratch, going a layout, gives you a lot of opportunities to do work that helps contribute to the AP certificates. And, these are watching TV all the time. So again, kind of like what I broke it into is, getting yourself in the right headspace, what to do in the basement, planning the layouts, and what to learn. So, good plan. All right. So really, it's
Pay attention.
Why?
I'm reading this. It's kind of cool.
I just got a little bit. It's just at a stage in my life. I've never had the opportunity to have a big. Now I've got space, time. I won't necessarily say I have all the money I want, but enough that at least I can get going with this. So some of the things to think about, what is this going to cost? Obviously, many of us have spouses, getting their approval for things.
With CEO.
And then just how much effort and time we want to commit to this. A lot of what I'm thinking of doing for this, I won't say it's cutting corners, but I'm really keeping it so I can do these layouts and do a lot of work rather quickly. So a lot of techniques and stuff that I'll share are not necessarily shortcuts, but they're just a simpler, easier way to get the job. Again, that kind of falls into is there might be better ways to do it, but it's the way I'm going to do it. Whoever takes the layout down after I die, they can do it. All right. So first part was just thinking about the room. Some of you have actually seen my basement before I started. It was just complete cinder block. I got pictures of that. And there was absolutely nothing there. So I wanted to think, my wife had a lot of input in this. In fact, she put her foot down and says, you cannot start building a layout until you have the basement finished. So pretty much all of last summer is was my project, was to get the basement done. I'll share a few photos of that, how I went through all that process. But actually, I thought that turned out really well because as you'll see, the basement turned out pretty nice, and I'm really thrilled with it. So I wanted a comfortable environment. Definitely wanted to get a ceiling in there, keep the dust down. I wanted to be able to do most of the work myself. I wanted to definitely have the floor covered and try to keep the layouts around the wall as much as possible. And there's reason for that because I'm using wall mounts to hold the layout up. So everything's getting attached to the wall so minimal weight. And then I wanted a space for doing actual model work and possibly a dispatcher. So that was kind of my room thoughts. This is the stuff that I need to have in the room. Obviously lots of light. And Jim is the only one that's actually visited this. So that's quite funny. Used to live up in northern Minnesota. Now I live in Bloomington. This is kind of my beginnings. That was the only thing that I had space for layout. I had about 18-foot space in here. And this was actually a portable layout that I created earlier and was in the process of making it permanent here. But that was all the space that I had. And again, my layout was always based on being portable. I kind of abandoned that whole thought now. Now I'm going to have room to do from this way. There's what the basement looked like when we moved into the place. Completely bare walls and cinder. Actually, there was a wall completely here. I took that out to help get materials into the basement. This was a challenge, as you will see, getting the sheetrock and the 2x4s into the basement. Only had a couple poles in here. I do have, and you'll see I've worked around the challenges of that. So what I did with the basement, I invested in the paint, so I sealed all the paint, the block walls from the inside, checked all the cracks, filled in everything, came in before to start with. And the reality of it is I live in Bloomington now. They're pretty tough on the codes and stuff there. They had some guidelines, so I had to draw up, and this is the entire footprint of the basement, draw all the plans on it, and get all that stuff, get building permits, which, depending where you live, you may not have to do that. I did. because they live in the city. But keep that in mind as you're planning your work.
Do you know which lights turn off?
No, no,
Can I try this?
no.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's good.
There you go.
Okay, because you get washed out.
Perfect.
We're trying to send this live to our friends in Canada and stuff that couldn't get here.
Really?
Yeah, I'm bored. So we're live on YouTube. And
So I looked it up the plan.
Oh, that's how you're having heat and do the other way, go back this way.
yeah, well, I just can't, you can't see it's all washed out.
So it was very important to get that done. Fortunately, the inspectors and stuff that came, when I was doing this work were really good, and they worked with me. They actually encouraged homeowners and will work with you. Probably the biggest surprise that I found out in 2023, they made a major change to the electric code. You can see you got to put a lot of plugs in, and they need to be these arc fault breakers and stuff. So just be aware, because they were pretty specific about that. And I was thinking, God, this is going to be a train run. I don't need all these plugs, but now that I've got them in there, it actually is kind of nice for vacuuming and just plugs everywhere. So what I thought was going to be a pain turned out to be not too bad. So got that all done, got through that, got it planned. So I started working on the basement, getting it done, framed it up, 200 some plus 2x4s in there. You can see I got the walls are painted and the floor. I decided I wanted to insulate all the outside walls that were left in there. I did put some heat in. I found these really nice little wall heat. Unfortunately, they're electric, but you know, that was the only option I had, because basements can be a little cool in the wintertime. Whoops, this is kind of important. I did have some like footings that jutted out into the space. So as I'll explain, what I ended up doing, that's the height of my new layout that's going to go in this space. I decided it's like 50 inches, which I figured works out pretty nice. So I just made that so the layout will just catch that goes around the room. Another process. One of the tools I'll recommend here is I built like a table set up with wings for the holding the wood, cutting the 2x4 chop saw. Well, there's after getting it started, sheetrocking. The only work that I didn't do, I did have a professional come in and take it, sand it. That's the one thing I just don't like doing. Again, work in progress. I went really easy. I just painted everything with blue, even though it may not look like it. I have a chip from a professional artist that did backdrops and match the color, and then I think that's a good place to start. So I just wanted to get everything painted blue. You can see where the layout's going to run over the top of these footings that are in there. There's a bunch of plumbing pipe here. I actually put a little shelf in it, so I got a hole in there with the layout and just follow right along. More progress, starting to come together with the drop ceiling. I think I have 30 plus lights in here. The LED lights are fantastic now. You just cut a hole and pop them in there, and you can easy chain as many of those as you want. A lot easier and better than having to deal with fluorescent lights. No, they're line voltage. They come with a little box with a transformer right in them. So, and I think I got them at Home Depot. I got a picture of them. They're pretty economical to use. I did do the drop ceiling myself. Boxing around ductwork is hard. That was a big challenge. I think it took me 2 or 3 days just to do that. Keeping things square. The lesson learned, the mistake that I made, I built the framework before I put the tile in, and I couldn't get the tile in. So if you come over, you can see it looks like it's been tweaked a little. I had to kind of take it apart, to get the tiles in it. So if you do box around, put the tiles in as you go, as you're building. Right now, the lowest part of the ceiling is here. It's a little above 6 feet, but the bulk of it in this area is 6 feet. So,
Ken and I are okay.
Just barely. But in the area where I got over here and the narrow gauge is more, it's above 7 feet. So it's really, so I've got enough variety in there. It doesn't look like you're walking into a dungeon. And with the lighting, it'll help. So. I went with carpet tile, which were easy to put down. Plus, if you mess one up, you can pull one out and replace them. It will work really well. It's just got to come together. I was able back in the laundry area to have space for my desk and future dispatcher. I got heaters in there, I got them on thermostat so I can control the environment down there. It's nice. In the summertime, because it's the basement with the air conditioning in the house running, it's always cool down there. And that's what it looks like done. My daughters gave me this. It refers to my space as a whole. So, if you walk down, you will see that. Well, this is what, not so much the hole now, that's what it looks like. So that's what I've been able to come up with. And my wife was pretty insistent. I had to have all the base work done, all the finished stuff, paint the posts, man, it's got to be finished, then you can start. As you can see sitting back here, this is some of the stuff that I had left from the layout that I showed earlier. So I've kept a lot of the pieces from that through how I've kind of integrated those into the new layouts. Okay. So that's the DIY part of it. Some of the tool tips and stuff, get some good tools. The chop saw, I did build the roll around cart for it. Back in dust plucked on it, worked really well. I didn't get that much dust down there because every 2x4 had to be cut. None of it was 8
That's a nice basement.
Hey, you need a tripod.
I know, I'm trying to get my wife's attention here.
Yeah, I did have a shop back there. It just doesn't go. And
Is that your spouse back there?
That's my spouse.
Pretty happy.
Tripod to do it.
Yeah, I got a gimbal, I just forgot the feed off it.
Or clamp onto a chair.
Yeah, well, so I got this, but it won't, I can't adjust the camera on that.
So I was really generous with the lights.
So my gimbal,
Get yourself a
So-
framing nailer.
no, but the feet on it are still out in the car, the little feet things. Okay, then don't. That's fine. No, you can talk loud.
Those Lego connectors, the electric, the inspector, electrical inspector, pretty comfortable.
They are, they need, so I brought a couple here, you can pull those wires out. Because the other thing I'll share early is I actually use these on the light.
Yeah.
Right over there.
So
I've put it there already 3-4 times.
On his?
they really work good for you.
What does he have?
The narrow gauge.
Oh.
He was gonna scrap. That you were from the.
Yeah.
We talked about it. Christ, he had two beautiful.
I put braided
wires.
wire in here
Don't get
or
rid
solid
of
wire.
So
Pays them on my layout.
he'll show it to you.
Yeah.
We're operating on a narrow gauge. I was trying to get him. He was gonna scrap it.
Yeah,
We
I
got-
think
we got a
they're the greatest things.
Neil, for God's sake, what do I redo?
Yeah.
And
So some of the
so
tools
that's,
that
the narrow gauges up.
we're doing, electrical wiring, and then also plugs in
I
there.
wanted him to
This
have
is great.
a transfer facility between the
I
two.
like where I use tools, is because they got a lot of batteries already.
I think it'd be
Got
bad.
the Installation, they got electric.
I'd do it, yeah.
We had some input in.
Nailer. This saves so much time. Screwdriver, they come on strips for the sheet rock, you can just sit there. You just go to town as opposed to trying to.
I forgot my damn can.
And I use the laser level to get everything level there. In fact, I'm using this for setting up the layout too. I use that to mark the walls and over boards. This is some of the stuff I've collected from my other advices. I put
you've got a
everything
camera
I
on
had in there. on
computer?
the
Yeah, I got
Right there, I
two
see
cameras,
it.
yeah,
move it around.
but it's not very good at,
Working
when the screen goes white, it doesn't pick it up.
recommendation, if you like that, so. Yeah. So those are some of the tools that I, get some good tools and it just makes your life a lot easier. Costco. Yeah, the racks. Costco. Yeah, I got a couple of those down there, and they're nice, use little stuff around. Because you're always, with it being, unfortunately, you moved in the house, got all this crap down there, and then as you're working, you gotta move it out of the way. Put everything on wheels. And they were proven on something. And I had like a cart worked off with the tools and stuff.
What was your investment estimation? 3 months.
So materials, including the cost of the tape, I got about $9,000. It's about
What did it cost you for the tape work?
the tape work, I got a really good deal. It's like around $1,500. It was a guy, actually, he said he'd give me a good price. He's going on vacation, and I'll be honest, all the other quotes I got were around $3,000. So he was like half. I'll admit, if you come look at it, it's not the perfect job, but, for the base, for the training room, it's good enough.
No, don't need them.
And then I had to put all the edging on and stuff, and I had to get some materials, so there were some other incidental costs. But I would expect for that, probably have to pay somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000. But other than that, I had probably about $8,000 materials. Pretty much Home Depot was my friend by some. Okay. So any more questions on the space? So now I got the spaces done. Now I'll move it on to the link. So the one thing, I did a lot of research and got a lot of information, and because I had a lot of time, because as I was building the basement, downtime, I wasn't working down there. I did do work on what I need to do for the layout. So again, the big questions: prototype versus freelance, Givens and Druthers. Everybody knows the Givens and Druthers thing that Mr. Armstrong came up with way back in the original days, which I think is a great approach to looking at it. And again, the Givens are just things that are about your space that you don't have anything you can't change. And the Druthers are just things that you'd like to see.
No, she's gone. She can take it.
So
Yeah,
I'm thinking,
she just had to fill out her
planning,
contest thing. She made
what I
crafts
need
and
to
stuff.
do for research, and then what can I reuse? Because obviously I had some modules, and actually Les gave me, encouraged me to use what I had, but I'm not going to be using it 20 years old. But as it turns out, it actually fit in nice, and it's working pretty well. So from a planning point of view, I've got some materials here. This guy here is I really like his thought on how he approaches the layout and stuff, and green space in it, and space, and learned a lot on that. Actually, I hate to admit it, but because I had a lot of time on my hand, Combat had a sale on their books. They were like half off, so I bought a whole bunch of them just to read and go through for finding for the layouts. But what I ended up deciding on is I do have a very large freelance logging operation that was kind of the basis of my other layouts. I wanted not to get rid of any of that, incorporate that in, which I think works out pretty well. So I have an element of freelance, but I wanted to get more around at least prototype operation and concept as far as the layout. So many of you know me, I do a lot of stuff in narrow gauge. So I pretty much decided on the Rio Grande Southern for my narrow gauge. So I narrowed it down on that. here's kind of like the Bible on it that was written back in the early 70s. A lot of great information in here. I'm part of a pretty large community of narrow gauges in the Twin Cities, so they're telling me what I need to do and stuff. So what I designed the narrow gauge layout around was running around many of the towns on the Rio Grande Southern. So I can share a little bit more about that, but that's kind of the net on that. So that works out.
What's the name of that book, Neil?
Silver San Juan, the Rio Grande Southern. Mallory Farrell, one that wrote this. There's also a books, I think that Sundance Publishing about. It's a story of the artist. Yes, 12 volumes also. I got several of those. But this one, what I really liked about this one here, it had a map, all the different towns on it. So, yeah, clear. Anyway, get the idea. It's got all the towns and the different elevations on the route, and it works out really nice. So I was able to use this, for my research to get the towns and everything kind of on the layout. And then the other resource before the standard gauge. So along with the narrow gauge, I'm going to have a standard gauge layout, which is going to take a large part of the basin. And thanks to Dave Hamilton, he got me onto this CB&Q Peoria branch book. So I've done some research on that. Going to be a prototype on that, so I decided on modeling from Peoria to Galesburg. And what I like about this, it's a single line branch with passing sidings. And it kind of suits my taste. And I can run, legacy stuff, CB&Q up through Burlington North. So again, instead of reinventing the wheel, cheating, and there's a guy in here that does the same thing. So I'm kind of modeling my version of what it's going to do. Illinois style. So again, I went with prairie kind of approach because it's flat, minimal grade. It should be easy to do. Do it around the layout. So believe it or not, I've actually put a lot of thought into planning the layouts. I do have 2-scale plans. I'm not much for trying to learn the software and stuff on these things, but this is going to be the standard gauge layout here. I kind of take the approach of get the main line to fit this kind of benchwork plan. I get the main line in, and the rest of it I'm just going to kind of ramp. This is my approach. So the back part of my basement is like 52 feet across. So I get a lot of nice main lines running in. So it's going to be my thought. And I did the same thing with the narrow gauge. Anyway, so I decided on the RDS. The RDS for a lot of planning books that I use, a lot of good information out there. You join the lake. Look at these, those guys are phenomenal. You've got plans and stuff, they'll look at it and give you recommendations of things and how to improve it and stuff like that. So I haven't used them, but I've just kind of tail end and looked at stuff that they've done for other people, and I'm pretty impressed with that as far as a group. So those are the 2 railroads and the 2 layouts, plus I have my freelance plugin. And talk about this too. This book is by Joe Track Work. I just have the online version. I downloaded it. It's got a lot of great ideas in there on how to get the right curves, switches, track, and his experience has been with trying to standardize around the track that's used, which I did too. So again, a lot of good information out there. It passed around, sort of got stole the whole layout idea. So here's kind of what I decided upon as far as my standards. It's going to be prototype based with some freelance license remote. Really keep things simple. Go with the elder with screen scanning and otherwise wall. I'm a big fan of using torque screws. Everything in the vent port is torque screws together. So I hate those screwdrivers. Never had any problems. No helix, no hidden cracks, long runs, minimal grades. I do have grades. Prototype on the narrow gauge. Making all my own turnouts. Fast track jigs, and it's more because of the cost. The switches now are anywhere from $30 to $50. So got the jigs and make. So for the standard gauge size, I'm standard
Turn
number 6, number 8.
How about a dual gauge one? Yeah.
75.
And on the narrow gauge, so I did it in a 4-foot piece, 23-inch main radius. We're gonna try to keep 29 and 30 on the standard gauge. 6s, 30-inch reach on the layout. Keep having the top deal reach on the layout, so you'll see that a lot of standard gauge is going to be 50 inches. The narrow gauge because I have a lot of modules built 46. Basically, to start with, I'm just going to go with the ground throw switches, the frog pieces. Particularly need that now. Some of the guys don't power their narrow gauge is full. So, you know, just any places that's kind of inaccessible, it's not electric. What kind of just the caboose one. I bet it's a good place to start. There's a bunch on micro engineering.
I've seen that.
So what did you add? Show me on this layout what's cool. Is this the standard gauge or the narrow gauge?
This is standard gauge. Narrow gauge.
Okay, and they don't
This is
connect.
standard.
Okay,
Standard is none of this is in,
right, okay.
but the standard is.
Keep it the same,
I'll
don't
show you in the
Okay, thanks.
I've seen that above.
So here's the schematic of what the narrow gauge
That is all.
looks like.
Here.
It's
See the yard straight up.
Yeah.
That's one I was gonna use.
So I basically have staging back here, overhang.
Oh, he's doing RA.
It was gonna use that.
Dan Lindfors is building the ORA branch
But the
too.
big hoop is on the right side.
Yeah.
That's what could attach to the main line.
Oh.
Where you could put a transload.
Yeah, that would have been fun.
Here, look at that, which is high mountain area, down around two doors. I'll probably put other smaller features in there. Those are the main town. Probably the only unprototypical thing I've done here is town Rico between here and Dolores. But I already have a lot of them. Buildings, everything built for Dolores, so I just decided to make Dolores. Here, create this is a big logging operation. Is that big?
I talked to the track. Change.
Yeah, actually, this is a schematic. There's plenty of room. You'll see that.
I talked to them, a couple changes in that.
Very good. Yeah, that's
But basically, the top is
the best people to ask are people who built the layout, right? And operate. You know, that's the greatest advice you'll ever
Real
get.
wasn't in operation.
No. We got our class.
Here are some of the property photos so far. So what has been done. Here's the logging setup. So I had these two posts here, and actually it worked out well. I was having a hard, it didn't lend itself very well to be the layout. So I decided to just make it the peninsula. So I got it shoved in here. So I got a Y connecting it. And it helps, but then I was able to incorporate, eliminate the issue with posts for that. Here's a section from my old layout that I already had. These two sections here.
That he wasn't really
You
used.
see, I'm just using these heavy duty brackets.
I'm just
Much
gonna.
of it is a candy, it's not long, easy and easy to do. For the students, the log to get this. I do have a electric panel that's here. I'm just going to build like a foam mountain or something. Probably that.
Would you get in trouble with electrical code on accessibility?
Probably, I'm hoping not, because you can still reach it. Nobody said anything about it, it's quite not. I figure as long as I can get to it, then it should be fine. I do just like a laying kind of thing that you just pull off. You know, it's not any different than painting a room or something. Well, I'm just gonna do like a piece of whole, take the whole thing.
Yes.
Or quite honestly, it's really nothing more than help that I can even work. Just to see.
Yeah.
I like using cardboard. So this is kind of what I wanted for the ends of it. The standard use layout, then what's here actually is going to share with the RV, and there'll be
It's a
a
nice one too.
backdrop.
That's the new method.
I never used the wood dyes
Yeah,
yet.
just minimal
Because I build
dirty.
all mine to fit,
A lot of
so
this
nothing.
stuff
I know,
is on
built in
the
place.
Yeah.
material I had left over from the project, so. And use the cardboard templates just to see how it's gonna lay out. And you can see there's plenty of room. I only have one really tight spot that's around 20 inches. Otherwise, I've got 30 inches. Days less in the test.
Oh, that's neat.
Plenty of room.
That's it.
So that's one of the progress photos. I did take the opportunity to move the tracking.
Thanks, Lester. You can walk in front, no one.
Access to it. And the Rio Grande, Southern, actually, most of the towns are probably current, at least they had lights. So from a prototype point of view, that actually works well, even though it's not really associated with the town. It's close enough for me to consider it a prototype. This is the full size of the layout here. Some of the track work, this is the west, actually came up this, I improved access to the sawmill.
That's one of the changes I made of me right there.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Turntable in, and you can see this stuff.
The center.
Highline, it goes up to the towns that are the higher elevations. I pretty much have all of the track work in, I've got a couple of sightings that are left to do on this. Otherwise, I did there in February. I did have the Tuesday night roundhouse group come over and we ran 10 trains on here for about 2 hours, fairly trouble-free. So. And I will admit some of the stuff in the narrow gauge can be finicky, but for the most part, I wait till it works response. So it's the narrow gauge. More progress that we're working on. One of the big things there I'm showing here is, I don't know if any of you guys know or heard of Blackstone models that are ready to run narrow gauge stuff. It actually operates pretty well. Most of the stuff for narrow gauge modeling is building kits and stuff. And for whatever reason, I built a lot of stuff, but I didn't weight it very much. And from an operations point of view, it doesn't work very well. So basically what I've done is I've taken all of those.
We've got it now.
That's pretty much what it looks like today. Here, I've got a couple of big passing sightings in it. So, plan for these circular areas here, a lot of the narrow gauge has big trusses and stuff going across the board. We do that on a couple of those things. There'll be a backdrop along here and then in between the two lanes. This section here and the one up against the wall. I did troubleshoot this one, Dave, just here, why I had a three-way switch. One of the little tabs came unsoldered, so I got that soldered. Some problems. So on to the standard gauge. This is all I got done for this right now. I'm just starting data and stuff.
If you want to go to California,
Get them all. And for my friend Jim, because I'm doing this all 3/4.
that's what you get these snow.
You see just a little packet plate on this brackets. Wider, probably gonna have more weight on it. So that's what I've done here. Using the laser level to get it all level. It's gonna be a big yard area down here. So that's all I got started. So I'm looking for help with cutting plywood and getting this. Anyway, in Twin Cities, I want to do some bench work with me. Been collecting cars and stuff and engines for it.
I get to play caretaker.
Got to do that. I go to swappies and stuff.
Caretaker.
What's the size of plywood, what thickness?
3/4. And the reason I went this way, I actually visited Jerry Leone's layout. He's using brackets on shelving with 3/4 plywood and Portland road bed. He operated the layout when I was there, and it's pretty quiet. He's not having any trouble with it. So I figured, man, that's just an easy way to go. So I'm going to have enough places I can support it underneath. I am planning a peninsula in the middle. That my goal is to get all the outside done and then work on with the peninsula in the center. Yeah, I'm trying to get, I won't turn to the, yeah, and this is mostly flat grade, you know. It was, you know, I've been operating a lot of the guys' layouts, and it just seems like anywhere there's a grade, you gotta have something in there to keep the cars from going. Here, this makes it more suitable for operations. And it's prototypical, but it was in Illinois. Again, my goal is here is, you know, I've got time, but you know, how much time I've got to do that tomorrow. I want to get something done and I'll run it as.
Oh, narrow gauge is running.
A simple approach. I have been busy. I've been built 40 some switches so far. I'll let those back. I have to build a bunch with narrow gauge already too. So some of you might know I snowbird at times because my wife, we got a daughter up in California, so it's time up. So I took all my jigs and stuff. So I'm in California and you need to build switches. No, the track's going to be a flex track, Michael engineer. Yeah, they decided the narrow gauge layout is all code 70. The standard gauge is code 83. They did buy a bunch of code 70 track for the standard gauge, but I may not use that. As far as the cars, I'm not super, you know, I like the really detailed stuff too, but most of these are all factory rail, blue box, roundhouse cars. Actually, I got a bulk of these from guys in California, just sell them out. They're into the $60 cars. And, you know, buying these things for like $5 a piece or less. You know, we're going to put KDs and so it's going to be the bulk of the cars for the look is great, but if they're going to get them weathered up So at least it'll be a good start. So far, I think I've got maybe 50 or 60 cars. So the way up, it's probably enough to get some diesel operations going. I added some more lights back in here with less safety comments. So you see the last got more lights back.
I see it. I see it. I know.
That's easy enough to put in. For the tall guys.
We were on this case too dark. I was the one. That's because your eyes are better than mine.
So I'll continue more stuff. I just keep buying more stuff. I do that, you know, from a scenery point of view, simple scenery, it's gonna mostly be classic buildings and stuff. It's a standard gauge. I'll need all the craftsman type scratch building stuff. You know, I actually probably have 80% or more of the buildings needed in terms of stuff. That will actually come together pretty quick once I get all of the.
I was on this case.
You can see it's somewhat narrow. So scenery is too big.
It was too dark.
All right, so. Here's kind of broken down into the basement stuff. One of the things like stuff, what I ended up doing like sheetrock and stuff, I had to cut anywhere from 6 to 8 inches off of it, the top of it. We cut all the stuff out of the garage first. Believe it or not, taking 8 inches off it is so much easier than sheetrock and stuff down into the basement. So we pre-cut it there. Probably a good idea. We did a lot of research and shopping around price differences between Menards, Home Depot, and Lowe's and stuff can be significant. So I case to check them all out, you know, as far as getting the materials. Good tools made a huge difference. This one is really important, man. I took the time with the real basement to lay out the ceiling tile. If you do any of the videos on the ceiling tile, you know, because you end up actually cutting both sides so it fits in the middle. Actually, that the effort to do that really paid out well. Otherwise, if I made a mistake, I made you just waste a ton of tiles. You could use the other side of it. So I was able to, a lot of places like cut it in half and work down. The other benefit I had, the ceiling layout was identical to carpet tiles. So I could use the same thing, lay it out and cut it. Minimize waste. So if you do that, you know, that's a good practice. Take the time to really lay it out. The LED lights are fantastic. You can get whatever light levels that you want in there. If you need more light, just pop another one in there. Building code, they went well. I had no trouble with my inspections. So it's pretty lucky. Mentioned the electric code, the changes. Wago, Wago. Connectors, like them. A lot of people work well on the bus too. You know, and obviously if there's stuff that you just don't like to do, you might just have to farm it out. And the budget, obviously. And my wife kept me honest. And to the expensive thing most expensive thing that I did find for was heaters. They were like, put 4 of them in, and they were like $300 a piece. You know, you get the baseboard ones, you know, they're like $80, you know. But as I found out when the inspector came, he says, well, you know, you can't have a plug above the baseboard. You know, I haven't figured that in. So it was another little compact, and I really like them. You get a little fan in them, and they blow the heat around. So I think it's a nice solution. A lot more work to put them in than a baseboard electric one, but for a solution for them, worked out really well. The layout planning, you know, obviously I was forced into giving myself a lot of time to plan, which I really appreciate because it gave me a chance to look at a lot of different stuff and then talk to a lot of people, get around to several layouts, operated and things that I do and don't like. Felix and stuff like that. So that really was kind of the benefit of having to wait. So, but they really be critical what you want in a layout. I think that's important. It's something that you kind of want to have. It's not that important. You know. And yeah, don't get overly hung up on the givens and overthink things. Like I probably spent way too much time on this post trying to work the logging layout into it. So, but in the end, I still worked it out. Match your skills to your requirements and stuff that you like to do. Don't take on building fields that don't like. Again, I'm trying to keep things as simple as I can. You will make mistakes. You have to redo things. Just don't worry about it. Selective compression is your friend, like the narrow gauge layout. Rather have Rico in there and doors, but it's going to have space. So it's still a good representation. Don't reinvent the wheel. That's really the best thing in this group. Dave, Les, Ken, everybody, get their input as far as so you don't have to reinvent it. Because chances are there's probably somebody in the community that's tried to do something and either had good success or failed at it. Certainly, reach out and say, hey, somebody who's done this, help me here, so I don't make the same mistakes. So, the benefit of doing that too, a lot of us have been doing this out for 30, 40 years. We've made our share of mistakes, so there's a lot. And most importantly, keep it fun. I mean, it's your railroad. I mean, Ken was kind of pointing out, do what you want to do. It doesn't have to be perfect or exactly. You're building this for yourself to have fun. Obviously, you want others to enjoy it too, and not beat you up too much. Everybody has got compromises and come up with stuff that they just like. For the most part, you can justify just about them. So that's perfect. 5 minutes.
Well, you never had it level?
There, I'm not planning. I think it's the room that I got there, 200 feet of main line. The narrow gauge, I'm going to keep it, the way it is. I'm really maybe if somebody buys the house after I'm dead, they won't.
Mine the rails are saying it's sold out at the rail.
All the way.
I don't think it's sold out.
Level.
Before I moved to Black.
I'm gonna plan to do that, then you'll have that.
Well, personally, for me, I've seen and been in Wales. I just don't like it. I actually had a double my house once myself, and I just didn't like it. Just, you can see all the stuff underneath. You can bend over to get in there to work on them.
And lighting.
Again, I'm just trying to keep this up. That's one of my brothers, it's not yours. So.
I suggest that I didn't want to have a double decker either, and after I built the flat line, oh.
Well, I'm hoping with the peninsula, put the peninsula in there, be all right. So I've got one really narrow spot. I figure it's
It's gonna
keep
be
the peninsula
fine.
maybe 18 inches or so.
Should we measure?
That's why I went along the wall, that one wall, going through where the pipes are, and keeping it tight. And I'm really gonna make that like 8 inches wide. So just kind of meander to the towns of this, 30-foot run in the towns. Yes.
How many operators do you have when you change jobs?
Well, so far, we've only really done the narrow gauge once, and it was about 5 guys. And trained.
No, we've done it so. That's the
Seems like
truth.
that's
We've done it 3.
I'm figuring for the standard gauge, maybe 5 operators in the scenario. I'll get input from the group more, and have more or whatever. Both of the layups will have that in share, the standard gauge layout, I'm just gonna put a single lane drop in bridge. So you can keep that pretty simple too.
You give yourself a Monday for this thing, you get it operational.
I'd like to get it operational. So if I think I've got enough switches built and supplies and stuff. When I get the perimeter, I'll at least try to get the perimeter. I mean, I get the.
He builds like a man.
Yeah, I said some pretty long.
Builds like a man.
My main priority, as many of you might know, the narrow gauge convention is going to be in the Twin Cities in 2026. So I've already got more narrow gauge up and running and ready to go. So that's going to be
Yeah, they were
priority. So as you can see, I've got that pretty well.
Yeah,
And I got a lot, most of the building stuff. Okay, shouldn't be a huge.
It was the last one.
It was.
Yeah. They have standard gauge on too.
We have over and doing.
Yeah, we could. Or switch it back and forth. Yeah, I'm thinking, no, I'm gonna have the space for it. I just,
I
run,
gotta get my phone.
Lexus layout, and I really like the dispatcher idea. So I think at least for the standard gauge one, I could incorporate some sort of dispatcher to roll in that one. The narrow gauge one is, they're all extras. Everything is based on getting the train built, having the yard master set up the house. So you don't really need a dispatcher per se. But yeah, we can do both. Well, those safari guys that come home, they like going with steam stuff.
It works. It runs well. Even with the yards.
Even with the 20-year-old yard. Well, I've improved a lot of it. Like I said, I fixed that one switch, so that shouldn't be just an FYI too. I did buy the jig for curved layout switches for the narrow gauge. I'm not going to have any curved on the standard gauge. Those you've got to get those curved rails. Perfect. Particularly those narrow gauges. I've got one that's a little bit problematic.
One up there. Okay.
So helpful, you get some value from this. So at least I get a chance to show off and share what I've been doing, so. If you enjoyed having been in the Twin Cities, I'm retired, so just give me a holler for it, visit and stuff. Like I said, this summer I'll probably be looking to put some kind of work crews together and do some of the work on this, Folks should focus on that. Very good. Thank you much.